Good morning, everybody. Welcome again to the Word of God. The topic this morning is, are you meeting the schedule that God gave you? That's a very good question. Are you listening to God when He gives you a job to do? And are you meeting the commitment that God gave you to fulfill that commitment that He given unto you? You got to realize one thing. God gave you a whole day. Thank God for the day that He gave you. But what about the jobs that He may have given you that He's requiring you to do? For instance, I'll take myself as an example. I like to use myself as an example because I'm not going to get mad if I come against me. My schedule is in the church. I drive a bus and pick up people. The pastor asked me to be there an hour early so I can go and pick up the people early. But what happens if I go to pick up the people and the people aren't ready? So what about all the rest of the people? Are they going to be able to reach what they are supposed to if I don't get there on time? So what happens to me? You have to realize that when God has given you a commitment and you have to rely on other people, that you have to reschedule your schedule so that you can do what you are required to do on time and for a reason. Now, I don't believe that, you're saying to yourself. Well, let's show you something. God is in charge when you allow Him to be in charge. Now, my picking up people in the bus is minimal, but it's a requirement that God gave me through the pastor. So what happens if I decide to take on a responsibility that I didn't have before I started picking up people? That means in order for me to do what I have to do to get there on time when I'm supposed to be on time, that means that I have to work around that person or commitment that I've taken additional to make sure that I can be there when I'm supposed to be. Now, for instance, I'll give you a for instance. Say my family comes down and they come to visit. Right away, that's an extra commitment that I have because now my family is staying with me now. And I still are required by God to do what I'm supposed to do. So how do I rearrange my schedule? I either tell them to get up earlier, to do what they're supposed to be earlier, so that when the time comes for me to go to do what I'm supposed to do, especially for God, I'm doing it on time. You know, I'd like to go into the Word of God a little bit. Let's go to Matthew chapter 25. And I'm going to show you just what Jesus, the Son of Man, told His disciples. Verse 1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be like unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, The bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. And they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterwards came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered, said, verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. See, that is very important. We have no idea, but God himself knows when he's going to come and wants you to be ready to go unto him. If you take other commitments, I'm not saying you're not supposed to have the commitment, but you have to work around that commitment to keep the schedule that God has given unto you to meet, especially if you're obligated your time to God. First of all, we are to tithe, and part of the tithing that we have is the time. 1/10 of the day should be given unto God every day. So we have to make sure that when we are in a sanctuary like I am, and God, through the pastor, has given me an obligation to meet, I'm there to meet the obligation. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy all the time. Sometimes it gets to be really, really difficult. But what happens if I get there late and the commitment that pastor has on top of what was scheduled has to be done and I can't do it? He has to rely on somebody else. So what happens if the bridegroom comes and he's looking for his bride, like he did with the foolish virgins? There was 5 that did not have oil in their lamp to trim it, so they were required to go out and buy additional oil instead of getting it in advance. And the bridegroom came. The 5 that were ready walked in, and the door was closed. I'll take another example that I know in the Word of God is very true. What about Noah? Noah is another prime example that I have. God gave Noah a commandment to build an ark. And after he built the ark, and it took him 120 years to build that ark, he and the animals that God had gathered together to bring into the ark went into the ark, and God closed the door of the ark. That means everybody else that was on the earth, and it took Noah and his family 120 years to build that ark, they ridiculed Noah and ridiculed him and ridiculed him because it had never rained on the earth before. And they could never understand why Noah was building an ark where it was, because there was no water there. But Noah had heard the commandment from God to build the ark where he did, and he took the time and everything else that he did to make the commandment complete. He finished the ark, and then it started to rain, and it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The people that were left outside the ark all died, every one of them. Sad. What about you? Are you really meeting the commitments that God gave you to do? Have you scheduled yourself around what God has given you to do? That's a good question. I would really look at my life and say, I'm supposed to be here at such and such a time. And if I'm not going to be there, and maybe there is an additional time that has to happen, what about me? If God sounds the seventh trumpet and I don't hear the call because of the extra commitments that I have heard and done on my own accord, I'm not saying I shouldn't take them. I'll be so glad when my family comes, but I still have to meet the commitment that God gave me through the pastor. That is important, not only to me, but to everybody else. Really, people, are you really abiding in the will of God to do what God asks you to do? Or should you rearrange your schedule a little bit to leave and still meet the commitment that God gave you? Because He showed His love to you today by giving you another day. And all He wants in return from you is to meet the requirements that God has given you through the pastor or somebody else. But remember, God's love for you is so real. And all He wants you to do is to show your love back to God, so that when you're required by God to do something, you're holding His hand and you will get the commitment done as required. So until the next time, God bless you if He can. Amen.